Hello.
Great. Glad to have so many people. And those of you that are willing to show yourselves, that's great. I'm going to let people get settled, find their place, get comfortable, and give everyone a minute, and then we'll start. And so it's good to see some of the regulars coming in and practicing. So while you're coming on, if you just write what you noticed this past week, what you were able to do, and know that there's no judgment. Maybe you only got to do it for a few minutes, but maybe it was some walking, or it was just sitting and drinking your coffee or eating mindfully. So just kind of put in the chat what you were able to do this week and what you noticed for yourself, how you took care of yourself. Might have been gratitude journaling. I played music, beautiful. It can be very relaxing, nice. Gardening and being present. And it changes when you do some of those things, when you're really focused on the dirt and feeling the dirt and smelling the plants versus just getting lost in thinking. So nice. Being with music is always nice too. Yeah, I get that. I love that too. Yeah, there was probably lots of thinking, but if you can stay with the dirt and the sunshine or the rain, the odors, being grateful, doing 2 to 3 things each day and knowing them. So yeah, noticing what you're doing and being aware of it. Nice. Well, tonight we're gonna the focus tonight, and it has to do seeing old friends and hopefully being completely present and listening to them, being with them, noticing how they're feeling, how their body is moving, how they're paying attention, and how your mind is paying attention, whether it was thinking about stories to tell or was it listening to them and just being present. Reading my devotional readings every day. I have a book that I read from every morning, and it's one of those things that grounds me. So thank you all. Tonight, we're gonna talk about some more things within the body. And then one of the areas we're gonna talk about is the pain that we might feel in our body. And if some of you are like me, when I was, and even whether in the classroom or in a school education or any job work area, I would get pain in my neck and my shoulders. I had severe lower back pain, and I many times ended up with migraines over the weekends. And of course, they were horrendous. And what I've learned now, because usually when we have pain in our body, we don't even pay attention to it. We want to ignore it. We want to, we either tense up around it, or for me, I used to complain about it all the time. But the practice of mindfulness is a tool that we can apply to areas in our body of pain. And just like when we practice of just breathing and noticing our breath in our nostrils or chest or belly, noticing sensations in our hands or feet, and listening to sound, knowing we can't change those things. Those things are present, they come. What we want to learn to do is to be with the pain, that as if we're just witnessing it, as if we're paying attention intensely and saying, instead of the story, and we're going to talk about what happens when we feel pain, because there's a couple things we typically do. We will tend to hate it, right? Like, who likes pain? I mean, of course we hate it. It's who wants pain? Or we fear it. So all of a sudden I get a backache or a migraine, and I think, oh, now I'm gonna, there's gonna be a tumor. I'm gonna have to go to the doctor. So I catastrophize it. So there's this fear of what pain might be signaling. I was walking with a friend one time, and my hip started bothering me, and I didn't feel great. And she was like, well, people your age start to have hip replacements. And I thought, oh, so, we either hate it, nobody likes pain in some sense, or we fear it, or we may blame ourselves. If I've been sitting in bad posture, I will say, well, of course I have bad shoulder pain because I've been slouching over and it's my fault. Or if I stub my toe on something I didn't pick up, then I'm angry at myself. So a lot of times when pain comes to us, we may in fact create more suffering than just paying attention to the pain. And what we do with mindfulness when we're feeling pain is, instead of ignoring it, which thinking, oh, because I can solve everything in my head, we may even want to take a pill. I mean, that I was guilty of going to the doctor many times, asking for something to help me so I wouldn't feel so miserable. And we tend to ignore it. We don't want to go with it. We don't want to pay attention. We want it to go away. And what we want to learn to do tonight is kind of get curious about what's in our body. So pain's inevitable. We're going to do things that are going to shift in our body, whether it's aging, whether it's exercising too hard or sitting the wrong way, and if all of a sudden there's muscle ache. What we want to learn to do is notice the pain and not add to our suffering. So remembering that the mind will generate lots of thoughts and stories. And what we want to do is notice the fact that we go to a story in our head and we shift from the sensation of our body. So in the last few weeks, we've been working in the body, talking about the vocabulary of sensations. How does this pain really feel? Is it throbbing? Is it pinching? And how does it change as I notice it and witness it? Instead of going to the story and repeating, oh, I don't like this. This is horrible. Because the more I say that, the more I suffer. And it's a practice. Early in the first class, I referenced John Kabat-Zinn. He was one of the first Westerners to bring the practice of mindfulness into the secular population. And he did it at General Mass and Hospital in Massachusetts, and working with patients who had chronic pain. A third of our population in the United States suffers from chronic pain. And what he wanted to do is see if meditation, and he is a practicing Buddhist, but he wanted to bring it into the secular and into the hospital medical world to see if, as a result of practicing, patients might lessen their pain. And he developed a program called Mindful-Based Stress Reduction. It's 8 weeks, it's 2 hours a week, and it's all in the body. I mean, it's very much learning about how your body functions, paying attention to it. And through this practice, overwhelmingly, the patients said that although their pain didn't disappear, much of it dissipated, and certainly their relationship with it shifted. So this is about, again, exercising the muscle of the mind to be present in the moment and catching it when it goes off to story. And that's just a reoccurring theme, that mindfulness is about being present in the moment with an openness a curiosity and a kindness to what is happening here and now. And the more you aim for that, the more you'll catch yourself and see how story comes into play and can create additional suffering. One of the teachers I had taught me that the first pain is the accident, or hitting my knee or stubbing my toes. That's the first one. The second one is the arrow I keep stabbing with myself with, that I keep saying, oh my God, my toe hurts. I can't wear shoes. I'm not going to be able to walk for days. I'm going to have to get a walking stick. All these things that I make up are the additional suffering. So what we're going to do tonight is spend time, and we're going to learn to go towards the pain. If you have chronic pain, this is a wonderful exercise and practice. And if you don't, I'm going to give you some tools so that when the day comes and all of a sudden your shoulders are aching and it feels horrible, that you might try it. So we're going to do some of that tonight, of how we notice how story thinking and thoughts. Remember, the mind takes us to the past, it takes us to the future, or it takes us to judging and comparing. We want to try to stay and just name and notice what's happening in the area. So, any questions so far? What I want to offer is pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So if you have a question, let me know. I'm going to read some of these. Lost connection, I know it happens. Oh, I love somebody did the mindful eating. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, any questions? And we'll start. So, and feel free to write them. I'll respond. All of us are going to experience pain at some point. What we may learn is that the pain isn't constant. In other words, it doesn't remain the same throughout. There's a lot of activity in our body, and what we want to learn is how to respond to it. I recently woke up with a toothache in the middle of the night. And of course, I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to end up at the dentist. They're going to pull my teeth out, and I'm going to have a root canal and all. And of course, I didn't sleep well at all. And of course, when I went to the dentist, my teeth are fine. There's nothing wrong. My mind just kept running amok. So notice if you've ever experienced that something happens, you notice it. Maybe you hit your arm, or it's very sore, or your hands start to, today carpal tunnel is an issue, arthritis as I'm aging, and I start thinking about these things. Just notice and see what happens. So we want to learn to catch our mind when it starts to run amok and make up stories about the pain that we've just endured. So as I mentioned earlier, we hate pain. I don't know anybody who loves it, but maybe we fear it because we're not sure what's going to happen and the implications it could have. Or we feel responsible, and then we attack ourselves for being foolish and not paying attention and thinking I shouldn't have done it. I could have done this or that. And we spend all this time in our head again. The practice is to go to the pain, and notice. So we want to be able to, again, notice some of the language we might use is there's heat, there's throbbing, there's tingling, there's pinching, pulsing, pounding. This language associated with in our body. And that's why when we did the body scan, we've noticed our hands, our sensations in the feet, as we notice things happening and how they shift. This is what we're going to do with pain. So what we resist, from beginning, what we resist will persist. The more we fight something, the more it'll be in our heads to keep thinking about it and suffering from it. And what we want to do is go towards it. I know it's just, sometimes it's like, earlier we talked about naming the monster. It's like when your mind drifts, instead of getting upset, you just say thinking, worrying, planning, judging. What we are going to continue and we're going to practice is going towards it with this kindness of like, wow, I'm going to give you some attention because I know you're there. So why not? And see how it changes. Get to know it. Have a relationship with it.
Shoulder pain.
Yeah, shoulder pain. So, well, tonight this will be a good practice. That I promise I'll take you to that. So, what I'm going to ask you to do, and this is going to take a minute, and if you can't, we can work through the exercise. But if possible, if you can get a couple ice cubes in a little bowl or a cup or a bowl, and I'm going to give people just 2 minutes to go and get a couple ice cubes in a bowl or a cup and come back to the seat. And let me know. I'll just wait 2 minutes and see if we can do this. And then I'm going to take us through an exercise. And then we're going to do another meditation practice. And the person who mentioned shoulder pain, because I know exactly what you're talking about, this will be a practice that you can work on that too. And I invite you to always be like a researcher, experimenter, and just try it. It's a tool that has changed how I live. It doesn't always, there are times like I'm like everyone else. That's the other thing, is we're like everyone else. Our mind gets busy and I find myself slipping again, and I kind of come back and go, okay, pay attention. My mind is telling me stories. The mind is an incredible gift. All of you are educated, successful. You're in these roles that are critical. And so I know you can think. I know you can plan. I know you can strategize. I know you can come up with stories. Our mind takes us away from the moment all the time. What we want to do is be present more and more. And if you remember the lesson from the research is, I like it. I got ice. Okay, good. If you remember from the research, people who tend to be less present or not present are less happier. So people who live in the moment with as it is, not lost in story, but live in the moment and pay attention to this time, sound, sensations, breath, and completely aware of what's happening in the moment. Remember that the only way to do that is get away from the amygdala, this flip the lid part when the amygdala is saying, and that's what happens with pain. We hate it, we're afraid of it, and we'll blame ourselves. What we want to do is come back to the moment and be able to access our prefrontal cortex that gives us wisdom, discernment, awareness. And that's what we're going to do with pain tonight. So for those of you who have your eyes, great, thank you. So I want you to think about, and this is something to do, it's playful. At any point, if it's too much, just stop. I won't know it, but I do want you to stop. So I don't want you to take yourself into a lot of anxiety on this. But I want you to just kind of get in your seat, feet on the floor again, as we do when we practice formally, which is that exercising the muscle of the mind. And remembering when we practice, the intention is as soon as we notice our mind drifting, whatever the story may be, is we come back to the moment. And in this case, we're going to do it in the sensations of our fingers. So I want us to think, I want you to begin to think about your relationship with ice, cold, whether it's making snow angels, whether it's skiing, sledding, whether you've never experienced ice, you just know it's cold and you don't want to. Maybe it's driving on black ice. If you came from the north or the northeast, I want you to think about how you feel about ice and cold. And just notice what your mind, notice what the mind is telling you. Thinking about, could be past experiences, or maybe you're thinking of future. You know, think about what happened to most of Texas this past fall or spring, when we had the freeze for over a week, and some of us lost power, we lost water. My house was at 45 degrees for several days. So notice how that is making you feel. Or it might be joyous that, seeing the snowflakes. And now I'm going to invite you, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, I'm going to have you pick up a couple ice cubes, or just put your hand in the ice cube bucket if you can fit it. But I want you to hold an ice cube or two in your hands and begin to explore what's happening in the hand, the sensations in your hand. Notice whether you like it or dislike it. Might be pleasant, unpleasant. And I want you to notice the physical sensations, paying attention to the palm of the hand, maybe the base of where the knuckles are, which is a little thicker. Maybe noticing how the pinky finger is feeling compared to the thumb. If there's heat or cold, maybe burning, stabbing, unpleasantness or pleasantness. Try to name the sensation, knowing if the mind drifts to a story, try to come back just to the sensation that's happening in the hand. Maybe the top of the hand compared to the palm. Maybe noticing how the wrist is feeling. Can you be curious, exploring what's going on? Notice if the mind is going to a story. Could be any story. Could be a story of joy, of remembering how much fun you have ice skating, or having a nice ice cold drink with ice in it. Or maybe there's nervousness, wondering how long is this going to go on, and tensing. Be aware if the mind takes you away, and come back to the sensations in the hand. Keep exploring what's happening in the mind and the physical aspect of the sensations, particularly in the hand. And when you're ready, put the ice cube down and let it go back into the bucket or the bowl. And I don't know if people want to talk publicly or just hand freezing, becoming painfully numb. Thank you, Teresa. So any other descriptions of what you noticed, and if the mind drifted the stories? Were they pleasant, unpleasant? And how, what you noticed in in the body of the hand. I got the hand freezing and feeling partially numb, and whether the fingers or the top of the hand was different, or the wrist. Yes.
Hi, can we
Hi.
just unmute and talk?
Absolutely. Welcome.
Okay. Sorry I wasn't on camera earlier, but I feel for you because as a teacher, it was always really important to see my students. So,
Yeah. Well, that's so kind of you to have that. I appreciate those of you that have your camera on. Thank you. I know that others can't, so no judgment.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So what I noticed in the beginning was like the warmth of my hand. And then it started melting and sort of the liquid and the drip of it, like it was more of a sensation and everything. And then I kind of felt like the tighter I gripped it, the more it kind of, I felt the coldness and the pain of the ice. But if I sort of loosened and just let it sit in my hand, it wasn't as cold feeling.
I love the description. Thank you for that. I mean, recognizing the difference and the shifting of it. And, good noticing that, right? And did your mind drift to story at all?
No, I tried to just stay with
Good. Good.
what you were kind of prompting us and just focusing on that.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Ricardo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I first went, my mind first went to story. As soon as I grabbed the ice cube, the first two thoughts in my mind images were one of eating snow cones as a kid.
That's it. And how did that feel?
It was good. It was nice to remember that moment. And then the second thought was recently it doesn't snow very often here we're in South Texas. So the first time that it had snowed in many years, a few years ago, and we made like a little snowman. It was only like this big. It's about how much snow we had. So but then right afterwards, it was this I really kind of zeroed in on the sensation in my hand. And it started out as wet, it was smooth and cooling, but then the longer I held it, it was kind of starting, it got a little like achy. I could feel it starting to, a little burning sensation on the hand, kind of like a throbbing. And then, the tighter I gripped it, the more I could feel it. But then it got to a point where as I was focusing on what I was feeling, I didn't notice some of the other sensations anymore. All I could feel was the cool and the coldness and the kind of numbing of the hand. That kind of aching and throbbing and kind of burning sensation kind of dissipated.
Yeah. So I thank you. Because you brought up a couple things happen. Our mind goes to stories, right? So you talked about the snow cones, and our mind does it. It takes us away from the moment, right? So for the snow cones, it's a good feeling and there's a lightness. But there it could be for, someone when I was teaching a couple days ago, somebody had been driving on black ice in New England. And if you've ever driven on black ice, and their whole body tensed up and their heart was palpitating. But that was all in their mind because the ice cube in their hand was not the same. So that's that's the example of how mind can take us to suffering. So both you, and I'm sorry I don't have your name, but both of you describe this, and that's what we want to learn to do, is be able to almost be the researcher that's keeping notes on, this is how ice feels in my hand. And this is how it feels on my little finger. And this is what I'm noticing when I let it soften a little bit. And if I can just keep paying attention, I can notice how it changes, and the water that was getting wetter and melting, and if I loosened it or tightened it. And that's what we want to get curious about, and naming them, right? So when we name things, sometimes it softens, particularly if we can name what's happening in our body. I do suffer chronic pain, and I have learned, for a long time, I used to complain about it. And one day my girlfriend said, you know, your back must be fine. You're not complaining. And I said, no, there's still pain. I've just learned not to complain, which only added to my suffering, right? The more I complained, the more I felt horrible. And what I do now is, one, I have a particular name for it. So if you do have particular pain, you might give it a name. Same as thoughts, right? When we name thinking that interferes with our practice of meditation, it softens it. Yeah, I like that. The more I complain, the more it hurts. So true, right? It just, it's the other thing to look at. See what happens if you don't complain, but it's not ignoring it. So this is about turning into it, going directly to it, just like you did with the ice cube in the hand, and paying attention to what's happening and being able to label, have a language for the sensations in this body. And that's how we learn, we do it through practice. That's why you practice meditation formally. And remembering that the meditation formally is about concentrating, getting that muscle, the mind. We could talk about it like a train station. Although if you go to a train station or even in the airport, is you have a particular place you're going to go. And you want to stay focused on that. And when we're meditating, it tends to be, we want to be in the present with our breath, our sensations, or sound. And if you're at the train station or the airport, what you want to recognize is when your mind gets on a plane that you didn't want it to. And we can call it the thought train. It's the thought train. It just starts going to story. And you start thinking of all these other things, and you're not in the moment. You've now drifted off. Remembering the mind drifts about 50% of the time. And what we can do is train it to be present more and more often. And that you generate close to 70,000 thoughts. And some of those thoughts are exactly what Ricardo explained, memories of the past, because he's holding ice cube of, snow cones. And what we want to do is come and pay attention to the moment, especially when we're experiencing pain in the body. So, any questions about this exercise? Because we're gonna shift and do one in the body. So, the person who mentioned shoulder pain, this will be a good time to experiment and see what happens. Anybody have questions or comments about that? We're going to do another exercise practice. Okay. So again, getting in your seat. And this one, sitting feet on the floor, posture. And part of it is posture of, and those of you who are still teaching, whether adults or children, you know that how we sit can give us some confidence. It's also good for us to feel our body being supported by the floor, knowing gravity is holding us, both feet, shifting up and feeling the buttocks on the chair, whether it's soft or hard, a way to get your attention focused. And, now just letting the shoulders drop. And if you're comfortable, slightly tucking the chin and gazing downward or closing your eye. And I want you just to breathe in naturally You don't have to do anything other than let your body do what it does, which is breathe. Breathing in through the nostrils, deep into the chest and belly, and just letting the body rest in stillness. Settle into this posture, and we're checking in from the inside. Invite you to scan your body, maybe starting with the feet all the way down to the toes, noticing whatever is in that area. Might be warmth, heat, or just neutrality. Everything's fine. And now shifting all the way up the legs and noticing if there's anything in the knees or the thighs. Maybe paying attention to the pelvic, the hips, maybe tightness, heaviness, throbbing, or maybe completely neutral. And now noticing the back, the lower back, moving up the back where the shoulder wings are. Just noticing what might be present. And shifting to the front of your body, the belly, the chest, rib cage, and all the way then to your hands, paying attention, just doing a quick check of the area and the wrists, elbows, up to the shoulders, maybe noticing and breathing in. Noticing if you have in your head tightness, heaviness, aching, maybe pounding, throbbing. Notice it. Now I want to invite you to zigzag back through the whole body and notice if there's pain. Just notice exactly where it is. Maybe you caught it the first scan. Go back to that area. Paying completely attention to it. And notice the sensations. Maybe label as if you're witnessing and describing what is happening in that particular area to a friend, as if so they could feel it. Maybe numbness or throbbing. Maybe there's tingling. And maybe it's changed. Just keep staying with it and notice if it shifts as you're giving this kind curiosity to whatever is happening in that particular area. And now I want you to focus on an area that feels good. Maybe it was your feet or your hands. And I want you to shift your mind's focus and attention to that area of neutrality that felt fine. And just notice what's happening there. Feel if it's softening or if you're resting, and if your breath is just flowing naturally in through the nostrils and exhaling through the nostrils. And on your next breath, inhale, return to the area that had the sensation of pain. Notice if the mind drifts and how it might think, but go to that area where the pain was. And again, approach it with this openness, this curiosity, as if you're investigating it and you're describing it. You want to be with it as it is, naming, stabbing, throbbing, hot, cold, tingling. Notice if it's different from before, maybe softer, maybe not. See if you can breathe and soften. Notice if there's tension with the idea. We're simply practicing and noticing the quality of the sensations, labeling them as we notice. And when it gets to be too much, we can shift our attention back to our area of neutrality. Many times it's the hands or the feet, area that there's no emotions, no thoughts, just resting. Ability to shift our mind's attention whenever we need to. We're going to return to the area where the pain was. And before you go, just notice if the mind is like how it's reacted. Is it saying, ugh, or can you just simply go to the area and again, exploring what is happening, noticing what is there. Notice if it's shifted. And when you're ready, go to an area of neutrality, maintaining this mindfulness of focus and attention. Breathing in and breathing out, noticing your breath, if it's natural or if it's sped up or slowed down, but just being aware. And now I want to invite you to take some deep breaths into the whole body, breathing in through your nostrils, into your chest, your belly, all the way down your legs, into your feet and toes. Same with the arms and hands and fingers. And then exhaling out. And repeating that same breath deep into the body, following it with your mind's attention, noticing how your body is feeling at this time. And when you're ready, join me in this space again. So, what did people either talk or be willing to chat about what they noticed in that experience of, and if they dealt with chronic pain or just the practice of meditating and paying attention to the body?
I had a feeling of being more relaxed. As maybe started out on one side, went to the other, and then it kind of went away after a while. You didn't feel the pain anymore.
So you notice that the shift in it.
Yes. Yes.
Neat. Nice. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate you doing that. So somebody said they noticed two things. Ricardo, you want to say that? What you noticed? Can't hear you.
Nicole, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, there we are. For some reason, I lost you guys. There it is. Okay. So I noticed two things. The first one was as we were doing that scan, when you would name the body part, I would notice the pain that I have regularly in those areas. And
Mhm.
as we would move to the next body part, and I would focus on a new area, I wouldn't notice that pain anymore on the previous area.
Yeah.
And which was weird. And then the second thing was when we kept doing that kind of like seesaw back and forth between that neutral point and the point of the area of pain, the pain was there, but it didn't seem as intense
Mhm.
as I first thought it was.
Yep.
I don't know if that
Good.
makes sense.
No, yeah. And your experience is your experience. And this is that's what we want to learn, is how we pay attention to things, because our mind takes us away. That's the thing that our mind will do, is tell us it's much worse. And some of us have already admitted, when we complain, the more it hurts. And what we're learning to do is be aware of it. And then this fact that you can shift your attention from where the pain is with your mind by paying attention to your hands or your feet. So yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the first person. I can't tell who it was, but thank you. Anyone else willing to share what they noticed in this experience?
I would like to.
Thank you, please.
Well, it was really weird.
Okay.
Because with the first activity, I put the eyes in my hand, and I have a couple of pains, one in one teeth, one in the back.
Okay.
Okay, and I was trying to focus really very hard on the eyes,
Yeah.
and both pains went out. I
Ah.
can't believe it. And then when I was focusing where I have the pain in my face and in my back, I had the feeling that I had the pain, but and probably still have it, but my mind is trying to focus in taking that pain away.
Yeah. Nice. Well, your description in that, what we're learning to do is focus our mind's attention. Because when we go to story, remember, we either hate it, that whole thing of complaining, and so we're giving it all this energy, or we fear it because we become afraid of what might be happening, or we blame ourselves. And in this way, what we're doing is staying present. We're keeping our mind focused, and we know we can go to the pain that as you talked about, you go to it and you pay attention to it. But when it's too much, you can shift and go back to your hands or your feet, whatever is neutral. And then go back to where the pain is and see, and be kind. I've learned to smile, not that it feels good, but if I can smile or say, okay, there you are. It has a name. Not going to share it, but, give things a name, and it softens it. We have a little bit of kindness that we may approach with it. And that's I think those of you who did this and begin to notice those things shifting as you focus the mind. It's powerful and it's a gift, but we want to learn to keep it present as much as we can. Odds are it won't be present 100%. That's not going to happen, or at least I'm not aware of anybody that has been able to do that throughout the whole day. But we can learn what to do as soon as we catch ourselves drifting. As soon as I started catching myself complaining about my pain, I knew I needed to stop and just go, okay, there you are. Let's pay attention. So thank you. Anyone else willing to share or write in the chat what they noticed? And it's something to play with. I mean, and keep trying and just saying, wow, let me give it a name, maybe get creative, and then create this thought, this conversation with it. Maybe like, oh, there you are. Okay, you're here now, and you're throbbing. You know, it doesn't belong to you. It's not going to be constant the same way. What we'll start to learn is how the pain changes and shifts as we pay more attention. Questions about what we're doing here or comments? So
I would like to make a comment.
yes, please.
Good evening, everybody. This is Coretta.
Thank you, Coretta.
I would just like to say, for me, as I focus more so on the breathing, it took my mind away from the areas that I would normally have pain in, and it just kind of helped me, to settle in and not focus on it. So that was a good shift. I appreciated that.
Nice. I'm glad. And, for you to notice that, it gives you power to recognize how you can refocus that mind from taking you down a path of feeling suffering by just focus in the breath. Like that's a wonderful way to do it. I'm one of those people that always gets cold, and I cannot stand to be cold. And when I first did this ice exercise, I just thought this was the most miserable, I'll be honest. My mind took me so many places. But it's something I've learned to help me with, if I do get cold and I can't change the temperature where I am, I have learned to breathe and focus on my breath and my body, so that I'm not just thinking about how cold I am and how miserable I am. So the power, this is power that you're giving to yourself, and not letting your mind take you away down, on that train thought of stories. So thank you for sharing that, Coretta. One of the things we're going to do is another practice of mindfulness and another tool. So whenever we do work in the body, especially with pain, I will say next week we're going to be working with emotional pain. And again, body is very much part of the messaging here. But whenever we do this, we do a loving kindness practice. And loving kindness, and if you remember, the definition of mindfulness is about being open, curious, with kindness. I think I shared with you in one of the classes, another way to remember it is COAL, the acronym or the word COAL. C is the curious, O is the openness, A is the awareness of the present, and L is loving kindness. And we say that because there's a lot of times when we just, typically we're our worst critics. We blame ourselves. Remember, if we stubbed our toes, we're going to blame ourselves because we should have been paying attention. Or, we exercised too hard and we lifted the wrong weight. Or, something happens, but we tend to be our worst critics. And what we really want to learn to do is be kind to ourselves. And I will offer that the more kindness we learn to give to ourselves, the greater kindness we have for others. And it just works that way. You know, for many people, you know, there's the saying that the more you give, that you unintentionally receive more. And so this is the same. The more you give the kindness for yourself, the greater you have it for others. And when we do work in our body, especially for those who have chronic pain, we want to recognize that there are others who may be suffering and are around us, you know, that, and we're not alone. For me, it was a huge lesson to learn that I wasn't the first woman my age who was a widow. So we're never alone. We're not the only ones who suffer pain in our shoulders or our necks or suffer from migraines. There are thousands, millions of others who have certain fears or emotions or energies. So we're not alone. And there is a sense of gratitude and awareness when we open that up to others. So I'm going to invite you again to join me in the practice. Get into your seat, same posture. And the reason we all practice formally, and just to reinforce this, you know, that the practice of formal meditation, which isn't in any way religious, spiritual, is about this muscle of the mind. It's just like going to the gym and working your weights. You know, if we want to build muscle, whatever, we exercise with weights or whatever we do. This is exercising that muscle of the mind to be present. And we are changing habits. And when we change habits, we have to practice. And it's not that we get better, but that we feel the benefits of mindfulness more and more. So Coretta, that your observation of being able to focus on something else helped the pain lessen. That's what we want to get to, that we have the skillful response versus a reaction of whatever. So back in your seats, feet on the floor, back posture. And I am going to say some phrases. And when you get in your seat, notice your shoulders, close your eyes if you're comfortable. And for this practice, and this is completely up to you, I put my hand on my heart, because this is, we're going to start with us and saying some kind words to ourselves. So I invite you to put your hands on your heart, or maybe you just hold them in your lap. It's up to you. And I invite you to say these phrases to yourself silently after I say it. May I be well. May I be well. May I be strong. May I be strong. May I be healthy and have ease during my day. May I be healthy and have ease during my day. May I be free from discomfort, or may I feel moments of physical comfort. May I be free of discomfort, or may I feel moments of physical comfort. May I pay attention to the needs of my body. May I pay attention to the needs of my body. May I feel relaxed and rested. May I find peace and peace of mind. May I be safe from harm. When we practice loving kindness, we can share words for ourselves to express the same wishes for millions and millions and other people around the world, those that we know and those that we don't, knowing that we are never alone and we are not the only ones who may feel pain in our bodies. May I and others, known and unknown, be well. May I and the millions of others, known and unknown, be strong. May I and the millions of others, known and unknown, be healthy and have ease in their day. May I and others, known and unknown, feel moments of physical comfort. May I and millions of others, known and unknown, pay attention to the needs of our body. May I and others, known and unknown, feel relaxed and rested. May I and others find peace and peace of mind. May I and others, those with me tonight, and those that I don't know, be safe from harm. I invite you now to say a few phrases to yourself that you may need, and think of the millions of others who may be sharing a similar experience. Just feeling your hand, maybe on your heart or on your body. And now taking some breaths, noticing how your body feels. Notice how the mind is. If it's softened a little bit, maybe it's still busy. Just be kind. And when you're ready, join me in this space back on Zoom. If anyone wants to share what they experienced during that or how that felt, could have been uncomfortable or pleasant, maybe some ease.
Supportive.
Supported.
Yes.
Yeah. Makes a difference for me. I'm with you on that. A little bit of both, reassuring. Other comments or anybody willing to share what they experienced or felt during that exercise? I encourage you to add this to the toolbox that you have, whether it's in the morning when you wake up, affirmations, It could be just about something, you know, when you're going through hard times, that you're not alone. And if you can just, for this moment, I'm standing, I'm sitting, I'm here. And notice how that feels to be able to just pause and take care of yourself. We started this with self-care, that mindfulness and integrating the practice of mindfulness is about recognizing, you know, how to integrate presence versus just getting lost in story. And I love that. We want to remember, we have to remember we're never alone. And there's so much anxiety and stress and fear and suffering, and this compassion that we can give to ourselves of just taking care of ourselves so that we can be there for others. And you know, we talked about the gratitude practice and the well-being that it brings. Is it opens us up, you know, it makes us aware. So being able to say specifically, you know, what we're grateful for. Today I had a hard day and somebody said, Michelle, just lay down. And they took care of some things for me. And so prior to the class tonight, I took a 20-minute rest where I just laid down and I followed my breath, learning to do that and taking care of yourself so you can give to others. Teresa, thank you. I love vulnerable. Yeah, uneasy with this. I thrive from being guarded at work with coworkers, administrators, but I could become extremely mentally and physically exhausted. Yes, of course you do. And my heart for you, because as a caregiver, and that's, educators do so much. There's so many people demanding, and this, I'm grateful I'm alive today, and I'm grateful I'm healthy, because I wasn't one of those people who did a good job taking care of myself. And so learning just these moments. So that was about 5 minutes that we took care of ourselves. You know, gave us some loving messages and thought of the others that we know or don't know. But just learning to do that and knowing that the more we take care of ourselves, the more we can give to others with ease and greater ease. And the exhaustion, anybody remembers when we did the body scan, when the mind is in that, you know, activation, it's busy. I know what that feels like when I've worked a whole day and I've got 1,000 things to do, maybe kids, pets, lesson plans, writing PowerPoint, doing whatever. And then I finally get into bed and I can't sleep because my mind is still working. This is when you want to learn to follow the breath. Know the mind is still active. And when the mind is active, the body will not rest. And so we want to learn to breathe. We want to learn to pay attention to the body sensations. Or maybe we put white, you know, people talk about using the different white noise sounds. So there's apps now that have you know, I sometimes still use waves on a beach to attract my attention and take my mind away from all the thoughts that it wants to generate. And so if you can't sleep, there are free apps that have what they call body scans. And I use them, I still do. And I also use some voice noises that help me. The intent is that it takes your mind away from all the thinking. Remember, I said your mind's a gift and it's incredible. And there's a time for it to strategize, to think, to do the to-do list, to think of all those things. When you get into bed, that is not the time. When you get into bed is the time for you to sleep. And the way you get yourself ready for sleeping is maybe meditating 10 minutes beforehand so that you can clear the mind of all the thoughts. They're not going to go away because you already know when you practice, your mind drifts. And the exercise is, there it goes, label it, and come back to the present. I'm sorry, I'm getting so dark. I don't want to, I'm going to turn and see if I can give you some light in my camera.
The sun's going down.
Yeah, the sun, I know. So, and earlier. You know, I think they've said something like over 60%, 80% of our population suffers from insomnia. That, you know, people, we don't get the sleep we should get. And of course, when we're not getting the sleep we need, we tend to be more reactive, you know, that flipping of the lid, you know, instead of being responsive and thoughtful, we become reactive. We're short. We've got to learn how our own actions impact us. So, you know, I was one of those crazy people that, you know, thought it was cool to be able to sleep, go to work on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Did not do my colleagues any good. I didn't do myself any good. So play with practicing the breath, especially that one where we do the deep vagus breathing into the nerve. You know, we breathe in through the nostrils, maybe to a count of 4. You pause for 2, and then you exhale through your mouth very slowly, like a straw. And I use that sometimes at night, and I count, and I do it for 10 breaths and try to keep my mind focused on my breath. And when I'm activated, and I know some of you probably end up trying to go to sleep and you've got 1,000 things going on, is every time the mind drifts, you go back to the breath and you start again at 1. And nothing wrong with that. We just keep repeating, and because it's a habit and you're too important. You are, unfortunately, most people are not valued as much as they should be, but you're too important for yourself. So this one precious body you have, do what you can to take care of it, and rest is a one. I believe this true with resting. Yeah, need to escape the day, and it's a lot, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So yeah, has helped during the day, during classes, and then interacting with humans. I love that. You know, it's not easy to be, you know, do this deep breathing in the public if you're in a meeting and you're having to deal something. Sometimes, and a friend taught me this, that practices, they would just put their hand on their chest like they were just holding, you know, can be very natural. And they would look to the left and they would breathe in and they would exhale on the left, on the right. And it just looked like they were scanning the room. And it was a way to do it. And it was a good gift for me, because I thought, you know, I can't go in the corner and stand and, you know, pause and do a meditative breathing, right? But I could sit there and just kind of slowly notice and pay attention to what's happening. Notice my mind calming down, feeling my body calming and softening. And it doesn't happen immediately. So every time you hear me say practice, it comes with practice. I've been doing it now since 2013. So it's been a while. And, you know, there were days, didn't work for me. Every time we practice, we get a little bit aware of things and we notice, and we can come back quicker and quicker. And that's what we want. It's not that I don't judge anymore. It's not that I don't compare. It's not that my mind doesn't take me on a story. It's that I can catch it faster and I can be aware of it and I can decide to come back to the moment. And that's what we're doing, is training the muscle of the mind to keep coming back again and again, knowing that it will drift. Comments, questions, I invite you to speak or write. And now I'm cold, so I'm going to put my sweater back on.
I was just thinking that you're absolutely correct. When we don't get enough rest and our mind is racing so fast and frazzled, we do tend to be very short with those around us. That is absolutely a
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel, I mean, and you're not alone in that. Keeping in mind that, you know, and we don't want to beat ourselves up for that, because it happens. And it's, you know, my days in the classroom, I remember kids who would be sleeping and I would be, you know, how can you sleep in my class? Like, that's so wrong. And then the awareness of when we're sleep deprived or when something's happened, or, you know, we lose our attention when it's harder to focus. And so another reason to practice when we're feeling healthy, and just even finding the 5 minutes of sitting with coffee and just calming ourselves down versus thinking of the, you know, if anybody's willing to admit it, some of us have already said it. We get in the shower and we start having the conversations with, you know, what I'm going to say today, who I'm going to talk to, what emails I'm going to write, who I'm going to call. All that list has already started from the moment I wake up, or used to, let me say. And I don't even enjoy the shower. You know, can you just enjoy the shower and feel the water or the soap being clean, and then recognizing the gratitude that we have water. So some of us didn't have it during that week of the freeze, you know, so that awareness of, wow, I have water to brush my teeth, to wash my face. Can we learn to be in this moment with being open, curious, like as if you've never washed your hands before? Notice how that feels. Those are moments that can help you, again, appreciate the present instead of going into this mind and thinking we're multitasking and being effective. Because, and I'm not sure who said that about being tired and exhausted and short if you don't sleep, we get more reactive versus responsive. So this amygdala that, you know, takes us to fight, freeze, or flee, meaning run away, gets activated. So we'll do those things when we're not able to rest and come back to this frontal cortex of reasoning, logic, equanimity, discernment. And the more you practice, yeah, the water relaxes you. It can be a great gift today you have it. So anything else? Because we can close with a practice and you guys can get to your dinner or whatever you have. But if there's no comments or questions, I'll lead us in a meditation, let you go into the evening with a little more softness and ease, maybe. So finding your seat. Yeah, go to sleep early. I plan to, and I'm glad you are. So find your seat, feet, floor, and then just notice if the body can be still. There's a lot of sometimes wanting to do something. And closing your eyes or gazing downward, just listen to my voice. as you follow the breath, knowing there's no seeking, searching, clinging, just breathing in through the nostrils, maybe following the breath into the chest and the belly, knowing that thoughts will come. They always do. Things happening, so much. There's violence in the world. Let it go for now, just this moment. Focus on the breath. Notice the thoughts that come. They're there. Maybe shelf it for later. Maybe feel the ebb and flow, the rise and fall of the chest, the belly with each breath. Maybe feeling the temperature, cool, warm. If there's a lot going on, and there is, notice all the activity and maybe try counting each breath. Just following each breath in and out as one. And again, breathing in and exhaling as two. And be kind. Keep counting to 10 with each breath. And know that the mind may drift, may lose count. Just start again. As soon as you notice, be kind. Of course the mind drifted. It's a habit. The world is scary sometimes. Notice it and come back to the body, just where you are. Feeling the feet on the floor, gravity supporting you, holding your body, sitting in the chair, and breathing in and out. A tool you have that's always with you, the breath, the sensations of the body, and sound. Maybe just place your hand on your heart and remind yourself to send wishes of wellness for this moment. And then think of others and send them wishes of safety and wellness. And when you're ready, join me in this space. I take a moment of silence, just honoring all those in our public schools and private schools. And as someone said, there was a shooting in Arlington High School, and there was one here in Houston last week at Yes Prep, where an educator, administrator had been shot. I don't know the details, but just honor the sadness that you're feeling or the fear, and know that next week we're going to deal with the emotions that come into play. So I want to thank all of you for being with me tonight, sharing your experiences, trying and exploring what this is like, how to apply mindfulness, awareness, curiosity, openness, and kindness as a tool that you can use at any time. And the more we practice formally, the greater ease it may come. My wish for all of you this evening is that you get some good rest, that when you get into bed, whether it's expressing your gratitude for what you have in this moment, to breathing deeply and paying attention to the body, and knowing your mind is going to be busy, knowing the mind goes to story, but you can have the tool to focus on breath or sounds or the body. Be well, be kind, and as Jamie would say, if I will be back on Monday at 6:15, and it is just a guided practice. I have a brief introduction. It's usually maybe 20 minutes is what we do. It starts at 6:15 and we're usually off. So it's a brief opportunity to connect with those of us on this Zoom and be with others. So, and always welcome comments and questions and I will be sending the handouts to Hannah, who will get them to all of you. Thank you, Jamie, and all of you tonight. So grateful for those of you, everyone participating and sharing. Makes for a nice community of practice. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Michelle, and I hope you feel better in the coming
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, this was very helpful, so I appreciate it too.
Okay,
All
well, we will
right.
see you all Monday evening at 6:15 right
Be
here.
well.
So
Be
until
well.
then,
Okay, thank you. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Have a great
Jamie, I
night.
have a question. Aren't we meeting on Wednesday?